Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about productivity and producing more with less energy. My name is Yoshi Itoku. I am the Member Services Manager at Printing Industries for ACT and New South Wales. And with me today are Maddie Hoskins and Charlie Knaggs from EY. Maddie is a senior consultant on EY's climate change and energy team, and she's well versed in all things related to commercial energy efficiency upgrades. She also has a Bachelor of Chemical Engineering. Our second presenter, Charlie, is the Senior Manager for EY's Climate Change and Sustainability Services, and he has 10 years' experience helping companies with anything and everything to do with energy management systems, energy efficiency measures, and government funding for energy upgrades. He also holds a Master of Environmental Management and a Bachelor of Economics. So I've got two very competent presenters here with me today, and if anyone would like to ask them any questions throughout the webinar, please just type them into the questions box, which is located between polls and handouts. You can do that at any time, and I'll read those questions out for you at the end of the webinar. So that's it from me for the moment. I'll now hand you over to Maddie and Charlie so that they can begin the presentation.
Great, thanks for that, Yoshi. So thank you everyone for coming today. So we'll get started on our webinar about managing energy to decrease costs. So I'll just quickly take you through our agenda of what we're going to go through today. So first of all, we're going to cover off on some of the fundamentals of energy with a focus more on electricity, as this is one of the main energy consumers in the print sector. Then we're going to cover off on why managing energy is important and how we can better manage our energy consumption. I'll then take you through how to develop a business case for investing in energy efficiency projects, and then we'll go through some energy efficiency opportunities in the print sector and a case study for which government funding was received to carry out an energy efficiency project in the print sector. So just a quick overview of our background. We're from the EY Energy Services team. We offer a range of energy services right from the start of energy efficiency process, which is identifying energy projects such as energy auditing, right through to energy management and measurement and verification. We've had a lot of experience with a range of clients and working in the print sector as well. So, energy fundamentals and management. I'll just start off with some common energy types. As you can see here, energy obviously comes in many different forms. This can be a bit tricky when comparing the different forms of energy, as they're usually measured and charged to you on a different unit basis. So you just got to take that into account when comparing the costs of each source. So electricity is measured in dollars per kilowatt hour, and natural gas is measured in dollars per gigajoule. And then we've got petrol, diesel and LPG, which are all dollars per litre.
It's just worth emphasising at that point what Maddie said before, which is that electricity is by far the dominant source of energy within the print sector, and so that's certainly where we'll be focusing our attentions today.
So I'll just take you through the electricity supply chain basics. So first of all, we start with the electricity generator. So they take the raw materials such as fossil fuels or renewable sources, and they convert these into a usable form of energy. This is done through various methods depending on the type of input used. That's then passed to the distributor, and their job is to transport the electricity from A to B. So that's from the generator right to your doorstep. So they own all of the transmission and distribution equipment, and they also maintain that as well. Then we've got the retailer, who are in charge of actually supplying you the electricity. So they arrange the connection at your site, they meter the energy consumption, and then they will invoice you for your consumption. So what is the difference between a kilowatt and a kilowatt hour? These can be two confusing units because they look pretty similar, but they're quite different things. So a kilowatt is actually a unit of power draw at an instantaneous point in time. So as you can see on the graph on the left there, that's a line showing the kilowatt of a site over the course of a day. And then we've got a kilowatt hour, which is a unit of energy that measures the power draw over time. So this is your actual electricity consumption. And as you can see in the graph on the right, the total area of the graph is that site's electricity consumption for the day. So we've got kilowatt, which is your electricity demand, and kilowatt hour, which is your electricity consumption. So this leads on to how are you charged for electricity on your invoice. So you're charged on both of those two things. So there's a number of components. So first of all, you've got the retail charges, and these are consumption based, so they're based on kilowatt hour. They're the charge for the actual energy that you're using, and that can come in many forms of tariffs, as I've got listed on the screen. And then also on your invoice, you've got the network charges. So you're actually charged for this based on your kilowatt. So the way they charge for this is the maximum instantaneous power draw that your site has reached over, say, the past 12 months, which is the first tariff option I've got listed on the screen there. So there's a number of tariffs that you can be charged on a network charge as well. And it's just worth noting here, if you haven't reviewed your energy tariffs in the last few years, it's highly likely that you will be able to make energy cost savings here if your tariff is optimized. So you've really got to understand your energy consumption and ensure that you're on the right tariff for you. So you can negotiate these with your retailer and your network provider.
Yeah, and just to, sorry, Maddie, just to emphasise there that that while these concepts can seem a little bit complicated if you're new to energy, it's really they're really not so complicated once you get a handle on them, and they're really critical in understanding how you're charged for energy and therefore how you can minimise your energy costs. And in particular, just in relation to demand charges, what we tend to see is that most people think that they're being charged predominantly on the total amount of energy that they use. That's the majority of their charge, but actually that's not necessarily the case. Quite often, an organisation's demand charges, so based on whatever their maximum consumption, their maximum power draw was over the past 12 months, that figure can actually affect your bills over the course of a year and can actually constitute up to 50% of your energy bills. So if you can get a handle on the concept of demand, and if you can better understand your energy tariffs, then you're in a much better position to be able to reduce consumption. And as Maddie says, that can be as simple as switching to a different tariff to the one you're currently on.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Charlie. So, and the last component to your invoice there is the environmental charges, and these are usually fixed rate based on government environmental schemes, and they can vary state by state. So, what is energy management? Well, it's the process of understanding, planning, controlling, monitoring, and reducing energy consumption in order to improve the energy efficiency on your site. And obviously this has a number of benefits. The first most obvious is reducing your operational cost. If you reduce your energy consumption, your operational cost is going to decrease. But then around the cost, you've also got reduced exposure to the volatility of energy prices. So you can reduce your risk in this area. Improving energy management also can improve your productivity of the site and comfort on site. You can also reduce your environmental impact, which will help improve your reputation and help align your values with others of similar values in your supply chain. So why is this important? Well, as I mentioned before, very importantly, the cost aspect. So the graph on the screen here shows electricity prices modelled over the next 20 years. And as you can see, they're only going in one direction, and that's up. So reducing your operational costs, if you carry out a project to reduce energy savings now, you're going to really achieve a lot more cost savings in the future as the electricity prices rise. And you're also, as I mentioned, reducing your exposure to the volatility of the price rises in this area, which can be very advantageous going forward. So how do we manage energy? Well, I'll just go through a list of energy management best practices to give you a few tips in this area. So this is based on the ISO 50001, which is the standard for implementing an energy management system. So first of all, we need to assign an energy manager. It's really important that they take responsibility for overseeing and monitoring energy consumption and cost, as this is often treated as a fixed cost, but it can be minimised when you implement the right techniques. So there's a lot of opportunity there. It's really important to develop a corporate energy policy so that your commitments are formalised and made publicly available as well. And setting energy reduction targets is a really good way to promote continual improvement. So setting a series of targets over a period of time and renewing these targets when the time period has reached to promote continual improvement there. It's a really great idea to keep a register of energy efficiency projects, and this can be done by conducting an energy audit of the site to identify what energy efficiency opportunities are available at your site. This way, when the chance comes along to implement these opportunities, you've already got a list and you can understand what can be implemented. So if you're going through changes to your site, upgrades, changes to production or processing, or if a government grant for energy efficiency comes along that you want to take advantage of, you have these opportunities ready to go. And it's really important that you communicate the energy procedures to staff so that they can follow the correct procedures on site and optimise the efficiency there. And then regularly reviewing the system ensures that your energy savings continue to be realised into the future.
It's just on that one, Maddie. It's worth pointing out. ClimateWorks undertook ClimateWorks are a very reputable organisation in this field, and they undertook some research last year where they were looking at what characteristics tend to define an energy efficient organisation versus an inefficient organisation. And what they found was that the single most defining feature of an energy efficient organisation is that they tend to collect and analyse energy data on a regular basis. So this goes to the second point on the screen here. That simple act of collecting energy data and analysing it is what really tends to define an energy efficient organisation, and the research shows that simply by doing that you can identify zero cost or very low cost measures that can reduce your energy consumption by between 10 and 40%. And we'll provide an example of that in just a moment. And then the second most defining feature of an energy efficient organisation, according to this research, was that they had a designated energy manager, someone who has responsibility for energy management, so that as Maddie said, it isn't just regarded as a fixed cost, just a bunch of money that goes out the door every year, but it's actually something that gets scrutinised year on year.
Thanks, Charlie. So I'll hand over to you to talk about energy data.
So yeah, as I just mentioned, what we find is that this this act of collecting energy data, collating it and analysing it is a really good indicator of an energy efficient organisation. And I'll just draw on an example, a real life example from our work, where we were engaged by an aged care facility in New South Wales. So not a print sector facility, but certainly this example could apply to organisations in the print sector. And we sat down with this company when we were first engaged, and we looked through their annual energy consumption profile, and that's what you can see on your screen here. This is the kilowatt hours of consumption as distinct from demand, so it's kilowatt hours consumption, month on month over the course of a year. And this is useful data. It shows us that, firstly, because the load in the winter months is much higher, we can deduce that they have electrical as opposed to gas heating systems on site. It also gives us an indication of what the total consumption of the site is. So it's useful information, but we wanted more granular data. We really felt that, in order to fully understand this site, we'd need to get into some granular data. So we requested the data you can see on your screen here now, which is what we call interval data, and this is every 15 minutes shows the energy consumption of the facility. So as opposed to every month, we're now looking at energy demand every 15 minutes. And this is over the course of a week, so you can see their weekly consumption profile. And simply by collecting this data, we noticed a big anomaly, and I wonder if any of you out there can spot it at the moment. But it's these spikes that occur. So every day, in fact, every night at midnight, there was a spike occurring in the demand profile of this facility. And it was very confusing to us because it's an aged care facility, and we were pretty sure that the residents weren't having a 15-minute party every night at midnight. And so we investigated a little bit further, and what we found was that it went back to the metering that had been installed in the system, and in fact there was a linkage between the metering for this particular facility and one of the neighbouring facilities that was causing this spike. And because demand charges tend to be a lot higher than consumption charges, and as Maddie was talking about at the beginning, within your electricity tariff, this spike was having an effect it was dramatically increasing the demand charges that this organisation had to pay. So we went back and we spoke to their electricity retailer and we explained what was happening, and they were able to realise immediate savings of $40,000 per year on their energy bills. And not only that, but they were actually able to get a refund of $300,000 because they'd been incorrectly charged over the past 4 or 5 years as a result of these demand spikes that really had nothing to do with their activity. So the point I'd like to make here is that what we're able to do is save these guys $40,000 a year simply by collecting and analysing their energy data. And it's something, if you're new to energy management, my advice would be that's the very first thing you should do is to collect your data, collect granular data if you can, so interval data, and in order to do that, speak to your electricity retailers. They should be able to provide it for you. And just plot it like this, and you'll be able to learn quite a lot about how your organisation uses electricity, whether there's equipment on and out of hours, whether you've got any phantom loads, such as we have in this situation, and a variety of other things to get in there and start to save energy and costs. The other thing we know about energy efficiency measures is that once they get implemented, if they're not monitored on an ongoing basis, then the savings that you achieve tend to erode over time. So this is another reason why it's really important to monitor, to collect information, monitor it and analyse it on an ongoing basis. So in this example, we can see an organisation that's implemented an energy efficiency measure in 2011, and they've been able to save around about 20% of their energy consumption. And then what's happened over time is that their energy consumption has gradually increased. Those savings that they achieved have eroded over time, simply because the measure, no one's looking at the measure anymore. People tend to leave equipment on for longer if it's not being scrutinised. It may be that the equipment hasn't been maintained and so it's running more inefficiently, and therefore those savings tend to erode over time. So this is another really important reason why you should monitor and analyse your energy consumption over time. So there's a large variety of benefits that emerge from data monitoring, energy data monitoring, that I've really covered off on, but I'll just go through the main ones quickly. Firstly, cutting energy wastage as and when it's identified. So rather than, we find a lot of organisations will look at their energy data, but they tend to do it once a year or maybe once every 6 months. And really, if you're only doing that, then you're missing out on potentially 12 months worth of savings if you'd identified those opportunities a year earlier. And so cutting energy wastage as and when it's identified is a really big benefit. You're also able to plan energy efficiency projects better. So if you've got data, then you can start to understand what type of equipment you may want to install. You can start to develop energy management plans and load scheduling across your facility. And then really importantly, to the third bullet point here, we know that financial decision makers are extremely skeptical when it comes to signing off on CapEx for energy efficiency upgrades. And one of the reasons they're skeptical is because they don't trust the data. They don't understand the technologies and they don't trust the data. So if you've got really robust energy data that you can point to and you can base your business case on, then we find that you're in a much better position to obtain CapEx approvals from financial decision makers. One of the other opportunities or the other benefits is that it allows you to unlock government funding opportunities. So we have in New South Wales the Energy Saver Scheme, in Victoria we have the Victorian Energy Efficiency Target, and nationally we have the Emissions Reduction Fund, and these are all schemes that try to support energy efficiency investment from businesses. But in order to receive support from the government requires you in turn to have monitored your energy well. So by monitoring energy data on a regular basis, you're in a better position to access some of that funding. And then finally, you're in a better position to improve the overall productivity of your facilities because you have a better understanding of your energy consumption patterns.
All right, so I'll just take you through the main steps in building a business case for an energy efficiency project. So first of all, we need commitment, whether it be resources, budget or management approval. You need to have enough internal commitment to meet your requirements. And if you don't have enough capacity or resources to carry this out, seek external assistance. So then we need to scope the project, determine the size and the cost, and we recommend getting 2 or 3 quotes so you can actually get a fair idea of what the cost of the project is going to be.
Just on that one, it's worth noting that there are many, in areas like energy efficient lighting, there are a lot of suppliers at the moment who are willing to come out, to visit your site, count the number of lights that they believe are necessary, specify replacement lighting, and essentially build a business case for you. And while we would certainly advise caution and advise you to do your own homework, if you are time poor, it can be really useful to, as Maddie said, go out, get 3 or 4 quotes from a variety of suppliers and essentially get them to do the hard work for you, and then really all you need to do is run a ruler over the numbers to make sure that there haven't been any unrealistic assumptions used, which certainly is something that you should do.
And then the next step after that would be gathering the necessary data. So as we mentioned before, the importance of data. So meter, measure and monitor, and really gain an understanding of your business as usual baseline, so that this will enable you to calculate the energy savings, but then will also allow you to come back, if you implement the project, to come back and really understand if your predicted savings are being achieved and how much energy you're actually saving compared to your business as usual baseline. So then you need to calculate the energy savings and avoided costs. So calculate the cost savings from the reduction in energy, but also consider the reduction costs from other areas, such as new equipment may require less maintenance. You're also reducing your environmental impact and potentially gaining cost benefit here from government schemes such as ESS or VEET.
So a good example there of where energy efficiency measures don't just reduce your energy consumption, but also energy costs, but also reduce your maintenance costs, is in the lighting arena, where older lights tend to have a life of somewhere between, and we're talking here about sort of low bay lights that would typically exist at a printing facility. The older style lights would have a lifespan of around about somewhere between sort of 3,000 and 5,000 hours. The newer technologies, in particular LEDs, have a lifespan of up to 25,000 hours. So, you know, over 5 times the lifespan of an older lamp. So what that means is that you don't have to pay the replacement costs of a lamp as often, but also you don't have to waste the time of your staff climbing ladders or getting up cherry pickers to replace lights. And that can be a really tangible financial benefit for organisations that should be included in the business case for an energy efficiency measure.
Yes, exactly. So once you've got all of those costs and benefits, it's time to calculate the cost-benefit analysis. So factor in all of those things, and then calculate the ROI based on your internal metrics. So this might be a payback period or an IRR or an NPV, depending on what you regularly use to get project approval internally. And then it's also worth noting to keep an eye out for government grants if they do pop up in the energy efficiency space, because these will improve the economic viability of your business case. So I'll just quickly take you through an example business case here. So first of all, this is for a HVAC upgrade in a commercial building. And first of all, we scoped the project and calculated the cost to implement. Then we determined what savings would be achieved. So as you can see here, you've got electricity savings as well as natural gas savings. So you've got to take these both into account. There's also emission savings, reducing your environmental impact, and maintenance savings, as we mentioned before. So this worked out to be a total cost savings of around $107,000 per annum, resulting in a payback period of 3.3 years, which is a pretty decent payback period. All right, so now we'll take you through some energy in the print sector. So you can see on screen an energy balance breakdown for a typical print facility, and this one is for an offset printing site. So you can see there that printing machines make up the majority of energy consumption on site. This indicates this would be the best area to save energy in. However, it can be quite capital intensive to upgrade your machines and realise the energy savings here. So this is where it's really important to do end of life cycle planning. Don't just replace like for like when you're considering capital upgrades. Do research and make sure you've got a life cycle plan in place. And also remember, spending a wee bit more now will actually pay off in the long term over the life cycle of the machine. So if it costs more but you're reducing your energy consumption, that will actually pay off in the long run. So what opportunities can we see in the print sector? Most of these opportunities here were actually projects that were funded by the Clean Technology Investment Program. So these were energy efficient projects in the print sector. So first of all, we've got the opportunity of replacing 2 older presses with 1 new energy efficient press. And in that case, it was a greater than 65% reduction in energy intensity, which is huge savings. Now that's due to the increased energy efficiency in the machine, but also the increased throughput of the newer machine. We saw a case of replacing UV ink printer press with a solvent-based printing press, and this resulted in around 13% reduction in energy intensity from that upgrade there. You can also replace your compressed air system with a new energy efficient compressed air system. Air compressors are really energy intensive, and about 70% of the energy used in a compressed air system is actually lost at its heat. So you really want to optimize your system and make sure the compressed air is being used appropriately. So we've also got, you can also carry out HVAC upgrades, lighting upgrades, solar installation, and as we mentioned earlier, tariff optimization. That's a quick way to reduce your energy costs without having to spend any capital.
It's worth just noting there, as Maddie pointed out, that a lot of the energy efficiency gains we see in the print sector, actually, they don't come from necessarily reducing the energy consumption of a printing press. Where we really see the gains is by increasing the throughput of a printing press for roughly the same amount of energy. So the energy intensity of the facility is decreasing, the productivity of the facility is increasing. And just to that, we completely understand that a print manufacturing facility is highly unlikely to replace a print machine before it's reached end of life simply in order to achieve energy efficiency savings. So the way that we suggest you approach this is by doing your homework now so that you really understand when your equipment is coming to its end of life, and so that you really understand that what you're going to replace it with at end of life. We find ourselves in the situation very frequently where people haven't planned for equipment replacement at end of life. And so they just tend to buy the same piece of equipment again. And that, of course, doesn't lead to any savings at all. Whereas if you've done your homework now, if you know what machine you want to move to when your current machines reach end of life, then you'll be able to achieve energy efficiency outcomes.
Thanks. So we'll just go through a quick case study. So this was for Focus Press, and this was for the project that they received funding for under the Clean Technology Investment Program, and that was to upgrade one of their presses, upgrade lights, compressor, air cooling system, and also power factor correction. So that's a lot of energy efficiency steps taken there. And as you can see, it resulted in a carbon emission intensity reduction of over 60%. This equates to an energy cost savings of around $47,000 per annum. And as we mentioned before, increased productivity of over 50%. So you're really getting your productivity gains here. You're also reducing excess paper use and saving on ink. And the plate setter had a 40% higher throughput, increasing the capacity of the site. So there's all those additional benefits as well. The productivity within the organisation and value creation of new product lines, the industry leadership that this project shows, and also improving workforce skills in this area. Right, so that's all from us. If you do have any further questions or comments after today, please don't hesitate to contact us. Details on your screen there. Thanks, so we'll move on to questions.
Great, thanks guys. So I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just wait for a few more to build up. So again, once again, the questions box is between polls and handouts if anyone wants to type anything else in. So I'll just take this moment to remind everyone that our next webinar is July 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's about Adobe Creative Cloud Services and mobile apps. So if that interests you, just head over to our website, click News and then Calendar. You can read about it and sign up. And then the next webinar is August 5th, and that's about member services. So that's for our members if you want to make sure that you're getting the most of your membership, and for non-members if you'd want to know what we have to offer you. That's that. But back to this webinar. Question number 1 is, how can I negotiate tariffs with energy providers?
I can take that one, Maddie. So the first thing to note is that a lot of people will be on long-term or longer-term contracts with their energy providers, which doesn't mean that you can't renegotiate tariffs. It just makes it a little bit trickier. But often it's as simple as going back to your current, if you are on a fixed-term contract, going back to your current provider and threatening to leave. Quite honestly, that simple act can result in significant savings because churn within the retail energy retailers is extremely high. They churn through something like 20% of their client base every year, and so they're really keen to retain their existing clients. So if you go back to them and you have a few, particularly if you can point to other tariffs that are out there that would be that are cheaper, then quite often you'll find that they're willing to come to the party and reduce your tariff even if you are on a contract. But if you're not on a contract, the first thing you need to do, as we've said today, is to collect data to understand what your consumption profile is like. The key things you need to understand are what's your total consumption in kilowatt hours and ideally that would be during off-peak periods and peak periods, so splitting that out. But then also what's your peak demand level, because that's going to become a big factor in determining what your demand charges are. And as I said earlier, demand charges can account for a significant proportion of an energy bill. So the first thing to do is to understand what your existing energy consumption profile is like. The second thing to do is to go out to a number of energy retailers and shop around and see who will come back to you, or often they'll advertise their tariffs on their websites. In which case you can just model your energy consumption profile against the tariff structures that they have. But otherwise it might be a case of contacting them to ask what their tariff structures are, and then doing that modelling piece to understand, based on your historical consumption patterns, what would your future charges be like, and which of those tariffs is going to suit your needs best, and then simply entering into a new electricity supply contract with the provider of the best tariff.
Thanks, Charlie. And just on that, I should point out that Printing Industries has a free service for members called Make It Cheaper, which is all about negotiating tariffs. So if anyone wants any more information about that, just give us a call. Otherwise, the next question that I have is, this all sounds good, but as a small business, we don't have the resources to set up energy managers or energy policies. Can we get these from a third-party provider?
Look, I can have a go at that one too. There are a number of approaches you could take. I'd be interested to know where you're located. I'm assuming, Yoshi, is it mainly New South Wales and ACT businesses on the call?
I would say it's national. I can't see it at this moment, but I can give you more details after the webinar.
Sure. So there are some state-based, the state governments in different states support energy efficiency schemes. So particularly now we're seeing in New South Wales, the government's about to announce a new package of energy efficiency measures to assist businesses in achieving energy efficiency outcomes. So it's probably worth standing by to see what that package looks like. I'm based in Victoria, and we have an organisation down here called Sustainability Victoria, who are a government agency who also have energy efficiency programs that they release. Again, back to New South Wales, the government runs a program called Sustainability Advantage, which is a kind of vehicle through which they engage with businesses to try to promote best practice sustainability outcomes. And any business in New South Wales can become a member of Sustainability Advantage. I believe there is a small charge involved, but it's pretty modest. And certainly if you're a small business, I think it would be even more modest still. Those sorts of programs is a good place to start, but otherwise there's a federal government website called eex.gov.au, that's the Energy Efficiency Exchange. There's a whole bunch of resources on there that you can use. You could always engage a third-party consultancy to come in and help out. There's quite a few. It's quite a competitive space, the energy consulting space, so there are some very cost-effective energy consultants out there that you can bring in. But I would just emphasise that it doesn't have to. I completely understand that SMEs are very time poor, and that they don't have a lot of money to throw at these sorts of things. So it's about being smart about it. And as I said, the best place to start is simply by collecting your energy data, understanding what your consumption profile looks like, and then and seeing whether anything emerges from that could enable you to save energy.
Great, thank you. The next couple of questions were regarding the nursing home example that you gave. The first question is, how can we record our energy consumption like the graphs shown? So I think it was the graph that was showing while that example was being given.
Okay, so what it will come down to for some organisations is the type of meter that they have at their facility. So as I said, we call that interval data. So if you talk to your electricity retailer about interval data, they'll know what you're talking about. In that case, as I said, it's 15-minute interval data. Some states do 30-minute interval data, but in any case, it's very, it's good granularity. So if you have the right kind of meter, the first thing to note is if you have an old style meter where the guy comes around and manually reads it, the billing guy comes around and manually reads it, then you're probably not going to be able to get interval data from your energy retailer. But if you have a new, what we call a smart meter, so that'll encompass everyone in Victoria now has a smart meter. In the other states, it's a little bit dependent. But the best thing to do is to contact your electricity retailer and ask them for interval data going back as far as you can. If you are unable to obtain interval data, granular data like that, then you do have the option of installing a sub-meter. So these can be quite low cost. You can get a main sub-meter in for around about $600. Someone will come in and plug it in, and it'll shoot data through to your server or your computer at regular intervals. So that's a kind of way around it if your main meter doesn't allow you to obtain interval data. But if you're lucky enough to have a smart meter, contact your retailer and you'll be able to get that data for free.
Great, thank you. And the next question is also about the nursing home example. They saved $40K. What was their total usage cost?
Gosh, you're testing my memory now. This is going back a few years. I would have said that their total annual consumption would have been in the range of 100 to 120,000. That's sorry. So including that 40K that they saved, they're probably getting up towards 150,000 per year on electricity. And just to note there that the reason that they saved so much money is not because of the consumption, but because of the demand charge, because they were able to bring down their peak demand, because essentially that spike that you saw was a tripling of their energy demand at that period in time. And so by cutting out that spike, they were able to basically divide their peak demand by 3, which resulted in those significant cost savings.
Great, thanks. And the next question is, I've got two that are similar, but I'll break them up. The first one is, are there government incentives for installation of solar?
A very topical question, given some of the debate in newspapers over the last week or so. Yes, there are. There is a federal government subsidy for small-scale solar. So I think for the first 1.5 kilowatts, which is a modest household-sized system, you get a government rebate of about $800, something like that. But then after that, they are subsidised, but they're subsidised through the renewable energy target. So the government, part of the renewable energy target is for small-scale solar at the moment. There's a market in certificates, suffice it to say, and so by installing small-scale solar and generating electricity, you're able to create renewable energy certificates, which then get purchased by energy retailers, which can be quite a significant saving. So for that 1.5 kilowatt system I mentioned, you could probably get maybe $700 to $800 worth of renewable energy certificates that can offset the cost of the system. Now, that sounds complicated, but actually what ends up happening in most cases is you'll engage a solar installer to come in and put solar on your roof, and they'll organise all that stuff for you and just reduce the amount of money that you pay by the amount of those subsidies and renewable energy certificates. So you don't have to worry about all the bureaucracy involved in all of that stuff. Your supplier will handle that for you, and they'll just reduce the cost of the system accordingly.
Sounds good. And the next question is, can you help us prepare a proposal to access government funding?
Most definitely. Be interested to know what scheme you have in mind, because it's really important to identify the applicable scheme. But certainly, if that individual wants to contact Maddie or myself on the email addresses on the screen at the moment, we'd be happy to talk about what schemes might be available and what assistance we could provide.
Great. And it looks like I have one more question. So if anyone is thinking of asking, please, jump in now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, the last question is, are you aware of any programs in Western Australia that could benefit us where energy is not contestable?
Short answer is no, but I can take that on notice. So again, if that person, we've got colleagues over in WA who might be in a better position to comment on that one. So if that individual wants to drop me or Maddie a line and just ask their question via email, then we'd be happy to forward it to the relevant colleague in WA and see if we can get to the bottom of that one for them.
Thank you. And I've got no more questions, so I think that's it. Thank you very much to our presenters, Maddie and Charlie. Thank you to all of our attendees. And once again, please just check out our website if you're interested in any more webinars.